Hey guys, Tammy here, and in this video, I'm going to tell you why consistency is the key to your peace. Okay. Now, what happens is we learn techniques, we learn things that can help us, and we do them. And a lot of times they work, especially if you're getting help from somebody that knows how to deal with these things, right? And to deal with your narcissistic co parent in particular. And then as time goes by, we get more lax, and then it stops working. And we think, what is wrong? Okay, I've had this happen with more than one client. So I want to talk about this in a little bit deeper level because this really is one of those long-term success strategies that I talk about. We're not going for short-term, right? In child custody, we're going for the long haul. Before we dive in, as always, let me just remind you, if you like my content, don't forget to hit like on this video and also subscribe to the channel so that you get notified as new videos are released. And if you aren't checking out the podcast, go do that, divorceuniversityonline.com. You can find all the podcasts there. There's, I don't know, we're at like 300 and some odd episodes at this point. And you can find all of those all the way back to me and Thomas jointly, my late husband, who was an attorney that passed away. You can find the joint ones of us and then the new ones of just me. And you can just binge listen until your heart is content. Okay. And also, please share this on social media so that we can help more people. I'm going to start this with a story. So I had a client that I worked with about 5 years ago. Okay. Very, very narcissistic ex-husband. They've got like 5 kids. Okay. So a lot of back and forth and dealing with things. And he is a surgeon. Okay. So, not to say all surgeons are narcissistic, but this particular surgeon is narcissistic. And I think that is somewhat common, in that particular field of work, just like I think it tends to be pretty common actually with attorneys as well. I have a lot of clients who say, well, my ex is a narcissist, and I think that their attorney is too. I see that happen quite a bit. Anyway, I had this client that I worked with a few years ago, and we got into a pretty good rhythm with how she was responding to messages, how she was dealing with incidences that would come up, how she was dealing with, exchanging the kids and activities and them being in the same place at the same time, him getting a new mate, all these different things. We got to the point where we were dealing with pretty well. And, I had taught her a lot of tools. Everything was going pretty good. And so we worked together, I think, close to a year, and really kind of got her on some good footing, got some good foundational stuff in place. And I always tell people, like, as I'm working with people, what happens is every narcissist, every high conflict co-parent is a little different, right? The issues that they latch onto, the loopholes that they try to use and all that, it varies slightly. And so you can have all these techniques, but a lot of times applying them to your specific situation can be a little bit challenging. And, after you do this over and over and over, it's sort of half science, half art. And you learn to kind of combine those things and you learn how to navigate it. And so I always describe it as if I can come alongside somebody and I can work with them with their narcissistic person, understand the dynamic, understand the interaction and what's happening, then I can really give you some tools, put some processes in place for you that over the long haul are going to enable you to have those boundaries, maintain your peace, and not have to be going through this constant stress and turmoil, going back to court over and over, all the different things that we see happen. So I had gotten this client into a really good place. And so our coaching sessions ended. And then about a year ago, which would have been, it's been 3-4 years since I worked with her, I get a call and she's like, everything's falling apart. And I'm like, what's happening? And as we start talking, I said to her, you're doing all the same things you were doing in the very beginning. you've like relapsed. You've gone back into all your little old stuff, So I gave you processes. I gave you ways to draw boundaries, how to communicate, verbiage to use, how to tweak your language, how to, all that stuff. And you've just sunk right back down to his level. You're getting emotional, you're getting reactive, you're, having conversations outside of the parenting app, you're having face-to-face interaction. You're doing all these things that, of course, are going to re-trigger your emotions with this person. When you're dealing with somebody that is really, really on the high end of the high conflict or narcissistic spectrum, then I find that your boundary essentially has to stay really high the whole time. Okay. Some people, just depending on what the situation is and how severe they are, some people you can kind of raise and lower your boundary as you're going accordingly, according to how they're behaving. And like if they behave poorly, you can kind of raise it higher. If they're doing okay, you can lower it. I see that more with people who are particularly like bipolar, like maybe when they're manic, a lot of times they're easier to deal with because everything's good and they're happy, but then they go into depressive state and they get more difficult. And so that's when your boundary has to go high. And it's kind of more cyclical like that. I think borderline tends to be more cyclical. There is some cycle in a narcissist also, but I find it's not as severe, especially if they're on the high end of narcissism. Then really your boundary has to be really high the whole time. You cannot think, oh, everything's going well, I can lower my boundary. No, everything's going well because of the boundaries that we've put in place, because of the way you're communicating, because you're not being emotional. That's why these things are happening. So when you have all those things that are working, but then you aren't consistent with it, then everything starts to unravel again. And then we don't understand. Then we're confused. We're like, I thought everything was going really well. I don't understand. No, if you're dealing with a really extreme person, you have to be consistent in what you are and aren't allowing as far as communication, interaction, the way they speak to you, all of those kinds of things. Because anybody that's at the high end of the type of narcissistic behaviors, at the first chance that they get, they're going to trample all over you, right? And as soon as they get a little opening, you give them an inch, they take a mile, right? That's what happens. And you do have to balance it with trying to be cooperative. I think that you have to try to show the court on a consistent basis that you are trying to work with this person. You are trying to be cooperative, but that's not the same thing as letting your guard down as far as their access to you and their ability to bully you and emotionally manipulate you and all of that. That's a different component than being cooperative for the sake of the children, right? So like they need to change their parenting pickup time, let's say, for that day. Okay, either I can do that or I can't. If I can, I'm going to say, fine, no problem, I can do that, even if I don't like it, right? Even if they've done it 500 times before, if I can do it, I'm going to do it. If I can't do it, I'm going to say, sorry, can't do it, but I could do A or B. I might give you two other options. That's what I like to do. Try to give them two other options of what I could do. But that's not the same thing as just, you can't come today, you're going to come tomorrow. Okay, yeah, whatever. Everything's very fluid and they're controlling the situation and they come and go when they want and all those kinds of things. That's not the same thing. No, that's like not having a boundary. That's like letting them walk all over you, and you say, I'm sorry, unfortunately, you didn't let me know in advance that you wanted to come today, so I didn't plan for that. However, I can do next Tuesday when you're scheduled to see the child, or I could give you some time on Saturday. We don't have anything planned, whatever it is. So there is a difference between dropping your boundaries and letting that person kind of regain access and control and being cooperative. There's a balance to those two things. And it can be challenging to find that balance. That's a lot of what I work with clients on is how do we balance that? How do we be cooperative, do what the court wants us to do, but also draw that boundary that you have to have with a narcissistic person in order to have peace in your own life and to not have your whole life dictated by them. So if you'd like more help in drawing those boundaries, you can go to divorceuniversityonline.com/VIP-coaching. There's a link on that page. You can book a time to speak with a member of my staff, learn more about my services, and how I might be able to support you on this journey. See you guys next time.
We'll grow in number, fueled by them to see the